Well, it is the first day of the knockout stage of MSI, and I am joined right now by Vulcan with coverage brought to you by Alien. We're going to talk a little bit about EG's unfortunate loss today. So I think there was some sentiment on Twitter from a lot of analysts and folks who said that they were still proud of EG's performance at this event, even if you guys did go out with the 0-3. So I'm kind of curious, what about you? How are you taking this, and how does it feel compared to some of the other international performances you've had in the past?
As far as the team result went, I am pretty satisfied looking back. It's kind of like what I tweeted earlier. It's kind of crazy to think that we went top 4 at MSI and got to play a best of 5 against RNG, especially if you look back and at like our regular season and how things looked back then. I think we should be proud and kind of satisfied with how things went down overall. But then at the same time, I think I had a pretty poor individual performance throughout the tournament at times, and overall it was poor. So I'm disappointed because of that, and I think in past international tournaments I played better myself. So yeah.
What do you think, if you look at it over the course of the last couple of weeks, that EG gained over the course of the tournament? Like, I don't know if you're like, oh, like JoJo really leveled up, or we figured out how to play more proactive, or anything like that. I'm just kind of curious generally what you think the team learned or gained from this experience.
I think it's funny you mentioned JoJo, because I think he's the person who has learned the most, and he had like a lot of room to improve, right? Being a fresh player coming into his first international tournament, and he was playing against much better players than he's used to. So he learned a lot about different matchups and just about the game in general. And I think he's like the kind of person where he can use this kind of experience very well, and he's able to objectively look at things. And even though he's maybe losing to Faker and Caps, who are very good players, and he should realistically lose to them, right? And I think he's able to kind of separate himself from the fact that he's lost and not let his ego affect him very much, and just take learning points from those situations. And I think he's grown a lot as a player throughout the tournament. And I'm looking forward to seeing him play in NA and see how hard he can kind of stump the other teams and the other mid-laners.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because there's obviously the historic MSI slump that so many teams start to have after returning from this event. It's tough because I think a lot of NA fans are looking and feeling like you guys probably gained so much, or what you just said about JoJo. And so there's a hope, I think, for many people you guys are going to come back and have a lot of this. But are you worried at all about the MSI slump hitting you?
Definitely. Yeah, it's a real worry. I think we'll probably have a slow start compared to some of the other teams, and it's kind of expected for us to go slowly, and we won't have very much practice going into the split because the way Riot's format is. We had one day after Houston to chill, like one off day, and then we had to fly to Korea. And now, well, today is the 27th, I think, and on the 10th of June, we need to be in LA because Riot features are happening like sometime like on the 11th or something. So we basically have 2 weeks before we have to be back in LA. And so some players like to go back home and kind of take that little, not necessarily a vacation, depends on the person. Maybe they'd be playing solo queue at home, or maybe they just don't touch the game. Depends, like, you know, people like to do different things, but we don't have very much time to reflect or cool off or, you know, just vacation, right? So we won't have the chance to play very much scrims. We'll come back on the 10th and then see what happens. I think we'll definitely go slow in scrims, and we will have a new patch, well, a few patches to learn, and it'll be challenging. And then, yes, it's definitely a worry. And then also you have the fact that your record is going to take a hit from the lack of practice, from the fact that you're like not getting much break before you go again. And so then there's extra stress from the potential bad record. And then you're like thinking about, oh shit, are we making playoffs? Well, I'm going very grim with this. But anyway, yes, I think the MSI thing is a huge disadvantage. And I hope that Riot looks into it for the future.
You know, along those lines, Danny tweeted, I don't know if you saw, but he tweeted, like, I'm just glad it's over after the game. And there's a lot of people, I think, already interpreting this to be like, wow, that's like a loser's mentality, or how are you ever going to be the best if like you're just happy that the games are over if you've already lost. So I know you're not Danny, but I'm curious if you as a pro player, and especially one that's in a similar situation as he is, can shed some light or maybe add anything that you might think people misunderstand about that tweet.
I mean, I totally agree with this stance, and I think in every single international tournament that I've played before, there is always this bittersweet feeling at the end that yes, it's over, and obviously bittersweet because it's bitter that you just lost, and we are all showing up and we want to win, right? But we are in a foreign country, living out of a hotel and eating primarily hotel food for a month, and then are in like very stressful situations where we play against very good teams, and the scrutiny of everyone is on us. And obviously, when you're a pro player, you kind of have to live with it, and we do. But there's a part of us that is glad that it's over, and now we get the chance to, as I said, we have a bit of time to kind of cool off, and then it's always nice to think about the fact that you'll just go back to LCS now, and you won't have to play in Faker's lobby again for a few months. So I think it's unfair to criticize Danny for that take. I think it's interesting though, because I haven't really seen people tweet or comment about like the feeling of being glad it's over before. And I personally, I felt it probably every single time I've been to an international tournament. So, and I'm sure we're not the only ones.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason I asked is just because I've obviously talked to a lot of pro players after the matches, and oftentimes maybe it's immediately after, maybe it's 5 hours after, or on the plane flight ride home or something like that, where you're just relieved because there's been so much stress and everything's been running for so long. So I get it. Do you have any predictions on who's going to win this whole thing? I know somebody asked Jojo, I think, and he was trying to dodge giving an answer. So I'm curious if you have an answer on who's going to win.
Yeah, I think RNG will win. I think, even though T1 has looked a bit better recently because their form was pretty bad in the beginning of the Rumble stage, I think RNG is a stronger team, and they've just shown that they perform better. So I also hope that they don't, because they're playing remotely, and it would be sad to not see anyone lift the trophy. And then there's also the fact that everyone would like low-key discredit RNG if they won a tournament from home. So I think that whole situation would suck. So I would love it if T1 or G2 could surprise me and win. But I think RNG will win.
Yeah. Very good. Well, again, thank you so much, Vulcan, for taking the time to do this interview. Is there anything that you want to say to any of the fans out there?
Yeah, thanks for staying up and watching our games. Thanks for supporting us. I'm sorry I ran down those games. I'm very disappointed in myself for throwing those games, and I think we could have had a much better record overall and taking games off EU. And I know there's a lot of pride going into those games, so I apologize for not giving you guys the chance to go on Twitter and flame the EU randoms.
Very good.
Yeah, we'll see you guys in summer. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vulcan, for the interview. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things MSI right here on my YouTube channel. Hello, everyone. It is me, Travis. I'm staying up late again for MSI this year. Wow. I'm excited for when I get to finally travel to international events, starting with Worlds this year. But the cool thing is that I would probably not have the will to do this if it wasn't for Alienware supporting me, because it's late. It's very late here in California, and I'm tired. But it doesn't matter, because I want to get you this great coverage, and Alienware wants to support me getting you that great coverage. So thank you to Alienware for making this all possible, and I will stay awake with their support.